Welcome aboard to NJ.com's Giants Chat. Joe Giglio with you here. We have Jordan Renan, Nick Powell at the Giants facility as we get set here for Monday Night Football, the first game after the bye. How you doing, guys?
Good. What's up, Joe?
Not too bad.
Not too much. Ready for this game on Monday night? Should be a fun atmosphere with Strahan and halftime and a big Monday night game. Obviously, the Giants here at 3-4 need this if they have any chance to get this season turned around. What's been the feeling? We saw yesterday Tom Coughlin had a little pep in his step, huh?
Yeah, I mean, they're coming off a bye. They didn't lose last week, so there's optimism. They put those two losses before the bye behind them, and they're trying to move forward here. And the big keywords is play above the X's and O's, which I think means, he needs them to take the extra step, and I think that's sort of the message. We have 9 games. Let's go. We have enough time. Do something special. Make a run here. Let's go ahead and do it. Whether they can do it, that's a completely different story. You a believer? Am I a believer? I'm pretty sure we're all probably not big believers right now, but, they're on board. Tom Coughlin speaks, and they listen.
Guys, the Colts coming into this game, a couple weeks ago I would have said this is a really difficult game for the Giants, just the way the Colts have been playing. They beat the Ravens at home. That was a nice win. They beat up the Cincinnati Bengals at home. That was a really nice win. Then we watched them last week, and I'm sure the Giants on their bye paid attention to that game. Ben Roethlisberger had a career day and just torched them. What kind of Colts team are we looking at here, especially on the defensive side of the ball? Are they a good team on the defensive side of the ball, or are they the team that gave up a ton of yards last week to Ben?
I think there's kind of somewhere in between. I mean, their secondary's been a little bit banged up, so I think that kind of played into the Steelers' hands, and obviously Roethlisberger had a big day. So, if the Giants have been kind of hinting at potentially opening up the playbook a little bit more for Eli Manning, putting a little bit more on his plate to generate some big plays. And with the Colts secondary, that could mean some good things for Eli and Odell Beckham and those guys. Look, Coughlin wants some scoring opportunities for this offense. There's no secret. That was part of his rap yesterday with the with the body language and the hand gestures and whatnot. He's really just trying to make sure that the team is all on the same page there. That they've kind of lacked that spark on offense. They really had gotten stuff going, and then Jennings gets hurt. They have that the debacle in Philly, and they've kind of lost their rhythm. So I think the prospects of a shootout are pretty high for a Monday night.
Here's the thing with the Colts. Vontae Davis is their best defensive player. Everyone over there pretty much will agree with that. And he left that Pittsburgh game early. That cannot be understated. They're not the same team without him. They don't have much of a pass rush with Robert Mathis not on that team anymore. That's a big problem. They lost their best cornerback. Changed everything for them. He'll be back. But the other problem is they're pretty banged up. You look, they had 3 defensive starters who did not practice yesterday. 2 of their linebackers and Arthur Jones, the defensive lineman. So they're pretty banged up, and it kind of almost reminds me of Atlanta coming in here. Number 1 offense, banged up team coming in. It might be a pretty good spot for the Giants, especially off that bye week.
Guys, we look at the Colts defense. What happened last week? You mentioned there, Jordan, without Davis, banged up in that game against the Steelers. And it all plays into all we've heard this week about Eli Manning. It should be throwing the ball deeper down the field. Should he make plays deeper down the field? You had a piece, Jordan. Should the Giants let Eli kind of win games? Let him go out there and do his thing. And Jerry Reese, his quotes were all over the place this week. How about the way Eli's played and what he can do differently, or what they should ask him to do differently next 9 games of the year?
See, that's the thing. When I say they need to give it to Eli and let him win them games, that doesn't necessarily mean he needs to be that much more aggressive and start winging the ball around the field all over the field. What they're doing in the passing game and offensively has been pretty good on the passing side. I just want to see more of that. There's no reason for this to be a 50-50 run-pass ratio here. This should be close to a 60-40. The short passing game, when you have a West Coast offense, that is your running game. That's the whole point of this thing, to run. So that's what they need to do more. Another shot or 2 down the field here or there, sure, absolutely, I'm all for it. But for Eli to come out all of a sudden and to start winging the ball around the field, I don't think that's what anybody wants, and I don't even think that's what Jerry Reese was intimating.
Yeah, and if he was, obviously that would be a good thing if the hit some plays, a bad thing if they start turning the football over, and then it looks like it did last year. You guys mentioned Rashad Jennings.
So in regards to that, a lot of times when you throw deep passes, it's not, even though it counts as a turnover and that's, but those aren't the killer turnovers.
It's almost like a punt.
Those aren't the ones that are going to be on your own 10-yard line. If you're at the 40-yard line and you throw a 30, 40-yard pass downfield on third down and it gets intercepted, in retrospect, it's almost the same as a punt. So those aren't the killer, interceptions, unless, of course, the guy runs it back. But
It's when you fumble on the 50-yard line, as we saw a couple times in Dallas, that those are the really bad.
Or the 10-yard line, as we saw earlier in the year with Donnell, when you going into the end zone and you fumble those. Those are killer.
Right, no doubt about that. And the Giants' offense, we'll see if they can kind of put things together the way they were. You mentioned the Atlanta game and their 3-game winning streak earlier in the year. The other side of the ball is fascinating because the Giants, they spent so much money in the secondary. They want to be better in the secondary. And now here comes Andrew Luck, who you look at his stats, look what he's projected to do. I mean, it's unbelievable, the career he's off to a start. And obviously just this year, how do they slow down Luck? Can they?
Well, it'll help if Reggie Wayne misses another game, which is still a possibility for the Colts. But, look, it's no secret. When Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie is in the lineup, the secondary is in much better shape. He's practiced a little bit more this week. It's kind of still up in the air how many snaps he'll get. He only played a small handful against Dallas.
It'll probably be more than those 15 or 16 he got in Dallas.
You would think, but probably still not the full 100% that he's accustomed to. But look, if he's on the field, that helps them a lot. If not, it's going to be a tough night for the secondary. You're going to see Jaron Hosley probably a lot more. You're going to see probably more of the 3-safety look that we saw against Dallas with Stevie Brown playing some nickel.
It's one thing when they're guarding Cole Beasley in Dallas, though. Right. It's another thing when they're guarding T.Y. Hilton here.
Right.
So that is a matchup that is definitely not favorable to the Giants here moving forward.
And not to mention, Luck has one of the best check down options in the NFL in Ahmad Bradshaw. So when the pass rush gets in his face, he knows that's always an option for him right next to him. So. Yeah,
I'm not sure if you could stop Andrew Luck right now. I mean, he's 370 yards or more passing in 6 of 8 games. I mean, that's just off the charts, So I think that the goal is almost to minimize the damage that he does, not completely shut him down, because I'm not sure that can happen.
Guys, you guys have watched football for a long time. I've watched. I don't know if I've ever seen a young quarterback as advanced.
Yesterday, Joe. What are you talking about? Give me way too much credit.
I'm trying here. I'm trying to make you the expert. I don't know if I've ever seen a young quarterback as advanced as Andrew Luck. I think back to when Eli Manning came out of college. He was the #1 pick. He was highly touted, and just where Andrew Luck is early in his career, just leaps and bounds of where ahead of where Eli was. And Eli's had a pretty darn nice career here with the Giants. Have you ever seen a quarterback or this kind of crop of quarterbacks come in so advanced or ready to play?
Yeah, it's a little different kind of game also. That's part of it is that the game is now made for the quarterback. It's getting easier and easier, and that's sort of the way it's going. But yeah, I mean, Andrew Luck is an absolute stud. We know this. But even when Peyton came in, he wasn't. It was a slow progression. I mean, he threw close to 30 interceptions his first year.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's a gradual process, but he had a lot of things working in his favor. Andrew Luck. I mean, former quarterback, father, involved, and came up through a really good system in Stanford. Pro style that helped him. I mean, tremendous skill set. Everything is just sort of worked for him. Really good offensive coaches he's worked for in Indianapolis. So I think this all contributes to why he's so good so early.
Not to mention he inherited much of the same offense that Peyton Manning left behind. Remember, the only reason they had an opportunity to draft Luck in the first place was because Manning got hurt, and that really left their offense pretty decimated. So, he's still coming in. He had guys like Reggie Wayne who could, kind of help him as a safety net, so he's not just thrown into the fire. And obviously guys like T.Y. Hilton emerged as big playmakers as well. So that kind of helped him.
Yeah, it helped that everything sort of went wrong in that final year for Indy at the same time, but he still had Reggie Wayne and some decent weapons and players around him a little bit. Having Reggie Wayne, who's a future Hall of Famer, to sort of ease that was a big bonus. A lot of teams, when you're the #1 pick, you don't have that coming in immediately. So that definitely helps.
Guys, you mentioned Ahmad Bradshaw. He's come back here. He's been a big part of the Colts' success early in the season as a pass catcher, as Nick said, and then obviously a tough runner between the tackles, which he always was for the Giants. Hindsight is always 20/20, but as you look at the Giants' running back situation right now with Jennings hurt, and I mean, do you think they wonder at all if they should have kept Ahmad Bradshaw around?
It's a fair question, but at the same time, you got to look back at where they were at that time. They couldn't predict that David Wilson would happen to David Wilson, and the fact that he's not even playing football anymore. He's basically retired. That was impossible to predict. They had invested a first-round pick in him. He had showed some things that made you think that he could be that guy. They had Andre Brown at that time also. So between those two guys, you think you have enough. They were in salary cap hell. Bradshaw made some money. It just made a lot of sense for them to go in that route. That's sort of why they drafted David Wilson. Once you were in that spot, I think that was sort of a no-brainer, even though he was such an integral part of them winning those 2 Super Bowls.
Not to mention Bradshaw was banged up for a couple of years. So
yeah, the foot problem.
Right.
It was a big problem. It was hanging over his head.
So there's no
to mention the neck that essentially
right.
basically became a big deal too.
Right. So it's hard to foresee him, coming back this year and having a kind of a vintage Bradshaw season. And he's still, he's on still the older side for a running back. So it's not clear how long he'll be able to sustain this kind of production. So, it's tough.
It's a good point. They would have had to wait basically 2 years to get any more returns on him. At the time, when you have those other guys, that's almost impossible with the salary cap situation they were in at the time.
Right.
Guys, so many people have talked about what the Giants have to do here these next 4 games to maybe give themselves a chance to get back. I think it's the last 5 games. And I know, Nick, you wrote about this a couple weeks ago, predicting the Giants' end of the season. They have 5 favorable games to end the schedule. Realistically,
5 straight wins.
5 in a row. Well, if they're going to get there to that point, they have to go at least 2-2, probably 3-1 these next 4 games. Is this one a must-win? Do you think they have to start the stretch with a win to make anything realistic?
Oh, absolutely. You can't lose off the bye week at home on a Monday night and then go to Seattle next week and expect to have any chance. Because if they lose this game, you're staring 3-6 right in the face. I mean, odds are very strongly against you winning in Seattle. What have they lost twice in their last 20-something games in Seattle? I don't care if they lost to the Cowboys recently. That's still a tough place to go and win, and I don't like their chances in that game. So this game, if it doesn't happen this week, coming off the bye week right now, I'm afraid it's not going to happen this year.
Yeah, no, completely agree. I mean, they've got the Seahawks, and then they got the 49ers coming in, another tough matchup. You got to steal this win at home. I mean, it's just necessary. You don't want to go in 3-6, your back's against the wall. That's pretty much your season. Playing an intensely tough road game in Seattle. So yeah.
When you guys look at the matchup here with Indianapolis, who's a player or two to watch for that, not Eli and not JPP, but a guy or two that you think could have a good game here against the Colts or needs to, considering the matchup?
I think DeMontre Moore. I mean, that we've heard, a lot of rhetoric over the last few weeks about getting him more involved, getting him more snaps, especially in third down, pass rush situations. But they seem to kind of be a little bit more adamant with that this week. He's one of the few real speed rush guys that they have on that defensive line. And look, Luck's one of the toughest quarterbacks in the league to sack. They've got to get consistent pressure in his face to rattle him a little bit, force some errant passes, and DeMontre probably has the skill set to help them along that front.
Yeah, and Nick, you talked about it before. I'm going with Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie. I'm not sure they could survive this kind of offense and this kind of passing attack without him in this one. Look, I like Zach Bowman. He's a good player. I would actually like to find a way to get him, Prince, and Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie on the field because I'm not sure if you can hold up with either the 3 safeties or J-Ron Hosley when you're talking about the Indianapolis Colts wide receiver core and T.Y. Hilton in particular. I'm just not so sure that they're going to be able to do that. If they could take Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie and have him follow T.Y. Hilton around the field, hey, it's a different story in my book, and that would put them in a much better spot. But can you game plan for that when you don't know if he's going to be able to last the whole game? That is a big question.
Last one for you guys. Let's hear some predictions Monday night. You guys said it. It really is a must-win for the Giants here. Strahan at halftime, Monday Night Football primetime. Do the Giants get it done? Do they even their record at 500 heading into Week 10?
I think we're going to have a shootout on our hands, like I said before. I'm going with Giants 30, Colts 28. A field goal maybe wins it at the end.
I think the Giants are going to come out, play well, but in the end, they're a little too short on talent. They lose a tough one to the Colts. Let's say 25-21. I don't know how I came up with 25. That is a strange number.
Maybe a safety.
But off the top of my head, I came up with something completely ridiculous, which is pretty much the norm.
Well, if a safety happens early in the game, I'm going to remember this prediction.
Hey, 2-point conversion here, there, all kinds of strange things. So safety, put them all together, 25. That's what I figured.
With the Giants, it always seems to be a strange game. Guys, we appreciate it. Have a good one.
Good time, Joe.